I am joined by my longtime friend, but new colleague, Shireen Ahmed. Welcome to CBC Sports. You just penned your premier piece on OCA and OUA athletes not being deemed elite enough to train throughout this newfound lockdown we have in Ontario. You've connected with a number of coaches and athletes. What have their response been?
Well, and first of all, thank you. I'm so happy to be here. And secondly, I think that the words of the actual student athletes really hit me. There's a mix of, they're perplexed as to why this decision came, because there's no actual firm path in routing. The government's been pretty mum, particularly when CBC has reached out to them about why and how this process came about and why OCAA and OUA athletes are not elite, which, we have athletes in these leagues who go on to professional careers, and currently there are some who are Olympians. So it makes you wonder why the distinction. The other 7 amateur programs and leagues that were allowed to do so, like what differentiates? I think that's where the frustration lies. And the athletes themselves have said that there's a sense of lack of belonging, and there's an escapism they almost have because they've dedicated their worlds and their lives for many years to these sports, and it feels sort of like they've been isolated from what they know. As far as the coaches go, there've been comments from it's being called a slap in the face, from that to also being excluded, and I think those are things that we really need to think about in this context.
So I want to back up. To just ask blatantly, how did the Ontario government come to this conclusion?
Well, see, I'm still digging for that answer. And at this point, my emails to the government have gone, the Ministry of Heritage, Culture and Tourism have gone unresponded, but based on previous replies, that it was based on evidence that they received from the Chief Medical Officer of Ontario. However, the OUA and the OCA assure and have publicly stated that they observe protocols. We're talking specifically about the sports in season right now. Those are the ones that are causing the most distress for these athletes. We're not going to worry about rowing right now because we're not in season for that. And plus it's an outdoor sport. So we're talking volleyball, ice hockey, and basketball in particular, who are currently in season, who all their activities have been suspended. And the decision was based and repeated from last January. So this is actually a regurgitated policy by the Ontario government with little more than a statement on how they're following protocol.
So what needs to happen to ensure that this doesn't happen again?
Well, I think that the student athletes and the programs and the institutions themselves are reaching out and making it very well known that to have these specific sports that are in season and should be training, if they go down skeleton crews of coaching and make sure that the athletes are masked up. We're going into our 3rd year of the pandemic. This isn't new. And keeping in mind the needs of these athletes, you cannot tell a high-performing athlete to go for a walk for their mental health. They have rigorous schedules. They're extremely dedicated, and taking this away from them, for a lot of them, it destabilizes their identity and their active way of living.